Hello, everyone, and welcome to College of Ag Week. Today, our focus is on Tarleton's master's program in animal science. And I am pleased to be joined today by two faculty members from that department. And as they're going through their presentation, if you have questions, please use the Q&A box or the chat box to submit those, and we will handle those at the end. So at this time, I will just turn things over to our faculty members and we'll get started.
Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Jessica Leatherwood, and I'm an associate professor here in the Department of Animal Science at Tarleton State University. I also have the unique privilege of serving as the graduate program coordinator, and so I hope that you can learn a little bit more about our program here in animal science. And if you have additional questions or you might be interested in learning more, my contact information will be provided at the end of this presentation. So the first thing that I would like for us to start with is talking a little bit about the program admission requirements and the steps to the admission process. So to begin, we offer here at Tarleton a Master of Science in Animal Science. And the goal of this program as students is to be able to find an area of interest within the animal science discipline. You will see that as you look through our group of faculty that we have here in our department, there's a wide range and a dynamic group of faculty that have much interest, varying from meat science to equine science, all the way into talking a little bit more about general physiology and stress physiology as well, that Dr. Webb will bring up at a later point in this presentation. So as a student that might be interested in this program, it's very important that you find an area of interest to which you want to continue your education in. The requirements for the program include a Bachelor of Science in Animal Science and a preferred GPA of greater than or equal to 3.0 and a minimum GPA of at least a 2.7. Typically, if we have students that are interested in our program, in some cases, they can undergo a conditional acceptance into the program, and I'd be happy to provide you with additional details if that's something that is unique to your situation. The other things we definitely want to consider as well is this is not only a continuation of coursework, but you're also going to be working to identify a major professor to work for. So unlike undergraduate programs, we're really trying to focus not only on the addition of coursework, but also having a better understanding of research in the animal science discipline. So one of the things that I would encourage you, if you're interested in this program, is to talk with the faculty and the professors that we have here on campus and try to help you through that process to find an area of interest that you want to continue pursuing, something that you're very passionate about in the animal science field. And so in that particular case, you want to identify a potential chair of your committee that has similar or shared interest. And another thing to always consider as well is to not only speak with them as faculty members, but I always encourage you to also speak with their graduate students that are currently in their program as well. We can project ourselves as a certain type of advisor, but really our current graduate students will give us the best or give you the best reflection of what that experience is like. Secondly, if we think about this as part of that process, in addition to talking with your professors, is to look a little bit more on the committee side of it. So in addition to your major professor to which you would be working for, we'll also identify other members of that committee that can help you and guide you through this process. So we can go ahead and advance at this point. So one of the things that we would encourage you, if this is something you're interested in pursuing, is to actually apply to the College of Graduate Studies here at Tarleton State University. So you will want to apply here first. And then after that application is completed, there is also a departmental application. So we would encourage you to complete the animal science application shortly after you complete the College of Graduate Studies application. This online application is very easily accessible to find the information relative to that relative to that degree program. So there is an online application that's available through the College of Graduate Studies website, and it'll provide you with the your online application, how you go about submitting all of the different aspects of that or parts to it, in addition to any kind of program-specific requirements as well. This is our animal science application. So for students that might be interested in seeking an assistantship, whether that be research or teaching, so that assistantship to provide you with some financial support, I would highly encourage you to use or complete this application as well. Most often, once your College of Graduate Study application has come through and you've identified a faculty member to work for, they will typically forward this application on to you. It's not always the case, but most often, if you are interested in pursuing a thesis in their program, they will encourage you to also apply for this apply through animal science as well. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about the overall, just the curriculum for the degree program. So the first thing that we have to look at is identifying a faculty advisor. That's critical as part of being a part of this program, particularly if you're interested in taking on the thesis route. So your faculty advisor first will serve as the chair of your committee. They've also, you may see them designated as the principal investigator of a research project that might be ongoing. And in some cases, depending upon what your interests are, it may be appropriate to also have a co-chair in addition to a chair of your committee. So co-chairs are acceptable as part of our advisory committee selection. In addition to the advisor, there are also committee members that will assist you and guide you through this graduate process. Typically, it's going to be based on their specific areas of expertise to, again, further enhance your learning in that specific subject area. And we also encourage working with faculty outside of our home department of animal science so that we can broaden our overall understanding in the scope of our research and what additional impacts might be beyond what we think of animal science in a traditional sense. So overall, we see that the role of the committee is to help you form a degree plan. So we have much more flexibility in our master's program degree plan compared to maybe what you have seen from an undergraduate level. But we hope as part of that committee formation, they can also aid you into your area of study, making sure that you have the rigor and the preparedness by the time you graduate from our program to allow you to be able to matriculate into other professional positions post-graduation. A big part of this as well is reviewing the student's thesis work, which takes time, and writing a thesis document, or some type of applied project, which we'll talk about here momentarily. And lastly, that role of that committee, whether it be your faculty advisor or committee members, is also to be there as your advocate and act as a sounding board for you in order to help ensure success and completion of the program. In animal science, we have two different tracks or concentrations. We have a thesis or a professional concentration. A thesis is what we really consider as a specific aspect of animal science. Think of it as students that are full-time and have uninterrupted enrollment. So really dedicating not only the coursework, but also research as a big part of that as well. If your long-term goal is to perhaps continue on to a PhD, this is the route that we would suggest, is to do a thesis in order for you to be marketable for potential doctoral programs. This is typically focused on more scientific and technical careers. And at the end of this program, you will undergo a process known as a thesis defense, where you will actually present all of your research that you have been working on for the last 18 months to 2 years, and be able to present it to your committee, but also faculty from the department and your peers. And you will have your presentation and then also an oral examination following the presentation. The other option is the professional concentration. We really term this more so as a terminal degree, but it gives you more flexibility in your coursework. If you're not quite a full-time student, or maybe you're a commuter, this might be a good option for you, particularly if you're just wanting to gain more experience on the coursework side of things. But you can also be full-time as well. Our goal with this is to have more of an applied research project that may be specific to the area in which you hope to seek a career. So at the end of this, it will culminate in a comprehensive exam. So in general, when we think about the curriculum or the coursework, specific degree plans will vary between students, right? Thinking about that advisory committee. And this list contains the coursework requirements that is the same for both thesis and professional concentrations. So overall, when we think about coursework, it's 36 hours of advanced coursework, and you have to have 18 hours in the animal science discipline. So all of your courses will have an ANSC prefix, and you have to take 3 hours of graduate seminar, okay? And that is a really good way to be able to connect with all of your peers, whether you are in the seminar for our thesis students or for our professional track students. Oh, there are a few variations that we have depending upon what concentration that you pick. Our thesis students have 6 thesis semester hours. They also teach an experimental design in agriculture. And you also have to take an additional statistical analysis or experimental design course as well. Again, really setting you up more so for a more scientific and technical based field. In contrast, our professional students do 6 applied project semester hours. So it's a little bit different than the thesis hours. So typically you're out doing your project that might be associated with an internship, for instance, where you're trying to understand a little bit about research, maybe collecting some data and doing some interpretation. Overall, those students are only required to take 1 statistical analysis and experimental design class for the professional concentration. Dr. Webb, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, let me introduce myself first. I'm Edward Webb. I'm a professor in the Department of Animal Science. And I think at the appropriate slide later on, you will see my focus area is much more in production animal physiology. And this is specifically because of this growing need for more welfare in livestock and livestock production. And this underpins all the physiological processes related to feeding, nutrition, reproduction of animals, and of course, this growing concern about the environmental changes that we're facing and these effects on animals, and trying to manage animals to, on the one hand, adapt, and on the other hand, produce animal products of high quality in a sustainable way. So this is really a growing and important aspect of the world we live in. And I don't think we can live without animal products. So this is an important program, and I think it underpins all the fields of specialization in the animal sciences. And it also provides a really good basis for anybody interested in going on to a career in the veterinary sciences as well. My focus area is mostly in ruminant livestock. That's my preference. But I've come to work in a variety of species, including a number of species that I've got no expertise in, like whales and wildlife, things like the predators and elephant and all sorts of interesting species, even the cold-blooded animals like the crocodiles and alligators and utes. And believe it or not, they are also important and part of this whole food web that we're focusing on. So that is from my side. I think it's an interesting career. This university program in animal science provides a number of interesting avenues to get to your end goal and progress into a PhD program, which I think would be the ultimate aim of higher education. That's from my side. Dr. Leatherwood, I don't know if you want me to add anything else onto that. And I think it's appropriate also to thank Dr. Eppu for this initiative, because there are so many questions about what is animal science really about, and what does this postgrad MS program, this master's program, add, and how does it benefit potential grad students?
Absolutely. And I think as part of that program, right, we definitely want to make sure that we are able to provide you with that experience in order to help you meet those expectations and provide you with that guidance along the way. I think it's very important. And we can also provide you with some targets in order to help you meet those goals in terms of when to think about planning for your defense, when you should schedule your defense relative to what what semester that you're really wanting to graduate. And all of that really is driven by your faculty advisor as well as your graduate committee as well.
If I can chip in, I think one of the awesome things about the Tarleton Animal Science program is how the faculty work together and our students are supported from a variety of backgrounds, some coming from first generation students and making a success right through to prospective PhD candidates. So I think that is really one of the important selling points of the program.
So I'd like to take a moment and maybe tell you all a little bit about our team of faculty that we have here in the department. First off is actually our dean of our college, Dr. Barry Lambert. Dr. Lambert is a ruminant nutritionist by training and has a particular interest in dairy production. But he has served many previous roles, but he has been a major advocate for our animal science department and really supports a lot of our research efforts. Dr. Owsley, who was formerly our department head and now an associate dean of research. Dr. Owsley is a swine nutritionist by training, and most of his research focuses on animal nutrition and management, really across a lot of different production animals. And his primary areas of interest are animal care and well-being, as well as nutrient management. Dr. Trinette Jones, who is an associate professor and currently the interim department chair for animal science. Her primary research interests are in equine nutrition. Dr. Jones has multiple projects that go on throughout the year, but she's particularly interested in vitro digestibility, but also looking at various utilization of forages and other dietary strategies in order to promote the health and well-being of performance horses. Dr. Webb?
Yes, as I've said before, I'm a professor in the Department of Animal Science. My focus area is specifically production animal physiology. I just love physiology, and it's also the applied aspects of biochemistry, something that many of you don't like when you do it the first time. But at this level, it becomes really interesting and intriguing, perhaps. My focus is on climate, nutrition, exogenous molecules like the steroidal implants and beta-adrenergic agonists, and then the effects on animal adaptation, growth, reproduction, and then the conversion of muscle to meat, linking specifically to the effects of stress, environmentally induced stress, and also management stress due to different types of production systems. For example, at the moment, we've got several projects on transportation stress and the related effects on carcass and meat quality. I'm primarily interested in ruminant livestock, in other words, cattle, sheep, and a lot of research on goats. But I ventured into the wild ungulates as well in Africa, a number of countries in Africa, and then also a number of exotic species like cheetah, worked on buffalo, and currently working on crocodiles, just finishing a project on housing systems and environmental effects on these cold-blooded animals that are uniquely adapted and seem to be less affected by the environmental and climate change that's so prevalent at the moment. Thank you, Dr. Leatherwood.
Absolutely. Well, that's definitely a tough act to follow. Just a little bit about my research interests. I primarily focus on equine nutrition and some physiology as well. I think there's a lot of interplay between both of these topics, but I primarily focus on the young performance horse and finding ways in which we can improve or promote musculoskeletal health, as well as promote competition integrity in order to promote the overall welfare of our performance horses. We also have Dr. Samantha Barker. She is a recent addition here at Tarleton, and we're excited to have her within our department. Her primary focus is in meat science, looking at both the carcass side and understanding how there are certain factors that might affect things like tenderness, juiciness, and the flavor of the final retail product. That's some of her early research through her master's and into her dissertation. And a lot of her current research looks not only on the meat science side, but also on the live animal side as well, and how live animal stress can ultimately impact meat quality. Dr. Zuli Contreras Carrera is an assistant professor. She's another new addition to our department and another faculty member that we're excited to have here. Her primary interest is ruminant physiology, developmental programming, and molecular biology. One of the things that is not listed on here, but I know as a fellow faculty member, is that she has a keen interest on mentoring students, both graduate as well as undergraduate levels, and does a lot of work, very hands-on, and most of her projects as well. Her long-term goals are to increase animal efficiency during heat stress conditions by evaluating various dietary supplements and gene introgression. So working both on the basic as well as the applied side as well. Dr. Contreras is originally from Puerto Rico, so she has a keen interest looking at heat stress across multiple species. Dr. Kim Gay is an associate professor. Her primary research interests are associated with animal behavior and stress physiology. She does a lot of work within our equine science group, but she has expanded further into other species as well. More recently, her work has been involving the effects of CBD and hemp production on animal physiology, from a small rabbit model all the way to horses as well. Dr. Rafael Martinez is another new addition to our faculty line. His research interests primarily focus on equine reproduction. His training, he had focused on a lot relative to different dietary products or dietary strategies in order to improve equine performance, particularly in the aged pregnant mare, as well as related to amino acid metabolism. His current research focuses more along the lines of equine reproduction, particularly looking at factors in which can improve the uterine environment of mares. Dr. Cheyenne Runyon, her primary research area is reproductive physiology. She is one of our faculty members that is not only interested on the applied side, but also does quite a bit of work on basic science as well. So spending some more time in the laboratory. But her focus is on understanding cellular and physiological interactions in early pregnancy. And then being able to look at that strategies or those different parameters and how it might impact pregnancy loss in women and other livestock species as well. Dr. Runyon also does quite a bit of teaching in addition to research, and I could see if students are interested in doing more pedagogy-based research, that this might be another area too that Dr. Runyon will be continuing to work in as well. Dr. Kimberly Wellman, who's an assistant professor, she is primarily interested in ruminant nutrition, some physiology, and most of her doctoral training is a combination of ruminant nutrition focused on vitamin E supplementation in cattle, and then continuing that out into the muscle biology aspect of it. So a lot of training on muscle biology as well. She's currently, her lab is evaluating specific nutrients and how they can impact animal performance and muscle development. Dr. Webb, do you want to maybe talk a little bit about why to choose animal science along these slides?
Well, I can definitely do that. I think I have already started or sparked hopefully an interest. But why do we choose animal science? There are two scenarios here. One is I always wanted to have a career with animals. So when I look or took a domestic animal and animal anatomy and physiology class, I was hooked. I enjoyed learning more about livestock production, especially nutrition. This is something that came from, I think it's a second year student in the animal science group. And this is nice feedback because when people think about animals, most would say you've got to study zoology or veterinary science. And we've got this beautiful, really applied field of study that's a very good future also for a growing career with a good profit and job opportunities. The second feedback is completing a graduate degree is where you truly develop your critical thinking and communication skills. And you also apply what you learned as an undergraduate in a more in-depth way. This is certainly one of the fields of study where there's a lot of really important underlying science that's applied directly into practical systems, into big corporate, and you can choose how far you really want to climb that ladder, either into corporate systems, governance, or into making a real profit in production systems, or into teaching career. So the options are almost the limit of what your needs are. There's some more feedback, if I can do this slide as well, Dr. Leatherwood. So I wanted to develop solutions for problems facing the animal agriculture industry. I truly enjoyed the hands-on learning and research experiences during my undergraduate degree, which turned into the desire to dive deeper and enhance our understanding of reproductive physiology. And this is a nice example because reproduction physiology is often the one subject that draws interest immediately. Students are very interested in it, but it's also one of the fields of study that's got many practical outcomes, stretching from collecting semen and using that in artificial insemination programs, right through to synchronizing animals in estrus, solving one of the biggest bottlenecks in animal production, namely the reproduction and reconception part of it. On the right-hand side of the screen is the question, why should I consider it? You can contribute to industry-wide problem-solving efforts. You can also select a focus that interests you and run with it. There are many permutations or different combinations of animal nutrition, animal physiology, and animal breeding and genetics to the depth that you choose that you can combine to solve several problems. And the interesting thing about animal science is that we constantly have to literally research concepts, because the climate is changing, the feed resource, the natural resources are changing. The genetics of the livestock we're working with are constantly changing. So, for example, the cattle breeds developed 50 years ago, Santa Gertrudis is no longer the same as the Santa Gertrudis today. And that goes for all livestock breeds and species. Thank you. Next slide. This is just a very nice example of what we hope to expect on the plate. And this is the beauty of animal science, namely that it focuses from conception right through to consumption of the final product. So it's literally the farm to the fork approach. So in the world of animal and meat science, there is always a need for continued research and education. We have to responsibly feed the world and to continue our duty as agriculturalists and enhancing our knowledge in this field to help obtain these goals. The highest priority of the FAO and the World Health Organization is to address the problems of hunger, nutrition, starvation. And this is where animal science fits in as a primary role player. I knew I had a passion for livestock from the beginning. Many of us feel like that. The concept simply clicked for me. What I learned in my undergrad is that I also had a knack for teaching. I wanted to combine the two into a career, which led me down the route for an MS and later on a PhD qualification. Second feedback, another feedback is advanced degrees may help you achieve a specific goal. If you know the career you want, the degree or degrees may just be a means to an end. Conversely, advanced degrees can help you figure out what you do or don't want to do. That is equally valuable. So potential career options stretch right from academia, different levels, right through to industry. And as I mentioned earlier, on climbing the corporate ladder into big corporate role players worldwide. And that's one of the beautiful things about animal sciences. You can choose to be literally on the ranch, right through to being in an office in front of a computer, or being involved in teaching and research. So from academia point of view, it could be at the professorial level, teaching, research and extension, and combining those outputs in ways that suit you. It could be an instructor or it could be a lecturer. Usually incoming staff climb and go through the ranks and develop their skills. So if you're scared of working or teaching or interacting with people, it's something that you learn, an experience that you gain, that by the time you reach the level of a professor, you're well equipped to do that. The system is well designed to support that type of growth and development. In industry, it would be sales, nutrition, reproduction, animal technicians, and research and development. Often a combination of these is important. So it's important to make sure that your basic training is strong and master's level and PhD level training is a huge added advantage in this type of system.
Thank you, Dr. Webb. And again, if you're viewing this webinar, you're welcome to reach out and contact me at any time. My contact information is available here on this slide. So thanks for watching.
Well, thank you to our faculty members for such a thorough presentation. It's so exciting to hear all that's going on in your discipline. For our live audience members, if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and use the Q&A box or the chat box to submit those, and we'll get those answered. But in the meantime, I had some questions of my own for our faculty members. I don't know if we mentioned this specifically, but I wanted to talk about modality of this program and location, because Tarleton has several campus locations, including a fully online campus. So where is this program taking place and how do people study?
That's a great question. Our program is located here in Stephenville, so on the flagship campus for Tarleton. And we are a in-person degree program. So for our master's student, it's in person. We do have a few classes that might be taught in an online format, but it's not an online degree.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. And I heard you say that a prerequisite is that everyone come in with a bachelor's degree in animal science.
Yes.
And so what stages are those people at? Are they coming straight from undergrad, or do you have some working professionals who come?
I would consider the vast majority having in our program right now are all recent graduates, either from our program or from other institutions.
Yes, yes. Well, can you talk about some of the success stories you've seen? You mentioned all of the sectors that people can take this education, whether it's academia or research and development. Where have you seen some of your graduates take this credential?
Sure. I know for students out of my program, just because I have the kind of the closest relationship with them in terms of where they have landed for their different careers. But I have students that work for feed companies. So thinking about the national brands that you might see when you go to the local feed store, but also students that have been able to obtain positions in ingredient companies. So things like trace mineral companies or prebiotic, postbiotic type preparations. Been able to have some students that have worked there. I have some students that have gone on to secure jobs at major pharmaceutical companies, some that continued on to a PhD and now are faculty members at other institutions, including here in Texas as well. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for students. We just have to figure out pretty early on, because it's a 2-year program and it's going to go by much faster than what you anticipate. And so I think as long as we are setting you up for success from the very start, I think that our goal is to make sure that you achieve what your professional goals are as well. So I have some students that are wanting to maybe go into or are interested in applying to vet school. And so I want to make sure I provide them with ample opportunities to really highlight their strengths if they're working in equine nutrition.
Very good. You mentioned assistantships, and that's always an area of great interest for people. So are you able to speak to how many assistantships are available, and at what stage in the process should someone pursue that? What's the process? You did show your departmental application, but what's the process for trying to obtain one of your assistantships?
Sure. So I think that's a great question and very warranted for students that are interested in a graduate program. So a lot of it depends on the availability of those assistantships. May depend on the students that we currently have in our program. I can't provide you with a specific number because we can have some variation depending upon student enrollment. But what I would encourage students to do is to really reach out to potential faculty mentors really early on and indicate if your interest is to get on a teaching or even a research assistantship to help support you through your graduate program. Start early.
Yes.
So to
And
speak.
and just yes. And just to be clear, whether a student is on that thesis track where they're writing the master's thesis or on the professional track, which involves an applied project, you've got to identify a faculty mentor first thing, and then everyone has a committee on both sides.
Yes.
That
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Very good. And so you also mentioned the comprehensive exam. What is the format structure of that?
Sure. So for the comprehensive exam for our thesis students, would be the oral presentation of their data, what they have been working on in combination with the written document of the thesis. And that is a public defense. And so other faculty and students can attend that defense and ask questions. And then anybody outside of the committee would be excused. And then graduate students would then undergo a series of questions, either related to their project or to their coursework. Mm-hmm. In the professional track, it's similar. It's a combination of an oral presentation and an oral exam. But again, the depth of that research is going to be very different compared to our thesis options students. So again, it's typically done maybe related to the internship. So thinking about it as an example of, I've had students that have worked on breeding farms, and one of their applied projects was looking at conception rates based on different types of management practices for those mares, and being able to summarize some of that really applied data, not to the same degree or depth that we would see for a thesis student. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of variation there, and can definitely depend on the faculty member that you are interested in working for. And that variation is driven by species.
Mm-hmm. What percentage of students go the thesis route, and what are some of the things they've decided to research?
I think right now we are really focused more. We have quite a few thesis students in our program. But we are starting to increase the number of students that are on the professional track as well. Some of the research that they are working on can be related to things like transport stress, different dietary supplementation, whether that be various types of trace mineral inclusion rates, different types of amino acids and how that might impact heat stress. Cartilage health and joint physiology, to different ways in which fibers are used in the horse's hindgut. So there's a whole array of different research opportunities. And I think that not only do we have a wealth of knowledge within our faculty itself, but we have faculty like Dr. Webb, for instance, that have a really great collaborative network. And so that our Tarleton students can maybe go work with our partners at AgriLife, or even working at other institutions as well, to really provide you with that unique experience.
Thank you. Well, your array of faculty expertise is quite impressive. But if there's an applicant or prospective student out there who might be concerned that their areas of interest don't fit cleanly with what they see any of the faculty doing already, does that mean that they won't have an opportunity to be admitted?
I think that's a great question, and I think it ultimately depends on the student and maybe what their long-term goals are. I think that we have a lot of variety in what we can offer, but we can't offer everything in order to successfully train a student to be marketable at the end of this degree program. So regardless, I think you should inquire about what your interest is and perhaps what that faculty is working on, and then continue that conversation from that point forward. Typically, what we see with our master's students is they will participate in maybe an ongoing project, maybe take on a portion of data or a portion of a project, but doesn't necessarily mean that at a master's level that they would have to come in knowing specifically what research that they would be doing. So a lot of the growing part of that is understanding the basic mechanics of preparing to do a research project, conducting the research project, making sure that they have all of the data that they need and be able to do some statistical analyses. So the best way to approach that is to figure out what those faculty members are working on, how active are their research programs, and do they align well with your goals?
All right, thank you for that. And so the best way to do that is just to reach out to people individually, or
Yes, I think that is really good. That's kind of your first option to do your homework and look at our website for the list of faculty members. Maybe look at a quick Google Scholar search and see what type of research that they are publishing. And kind of beyond that, you're welcome to reach out to me and I can help you get connected with the right faculty member.
Fantastic. Well, this has been so enlightening. Thanks to both of you, Dr. Leatherwood and Dr. Webb. This has been such an interesting exploration of this particular graduate program, and I know it's very popular. There's a lot of interest in this, and so we thank you for sharing everything that it has to offer. As a reminder to our live audience, this content will be available to review on demand in the College of Graduate Studies YouTube channel. And so we invite you to review this again as you need to. And if you know of others who could benefit from this content, please share this with them as well. So we thank everyone for their time. And I think at this point, we can end our webinar. So thank you so much.